It's a bit much. We're gonna create some hashtag art. Feedback for myself, a bit preachy. So you're in a creative rut, hey? Oh, interesting. How long has this been going on? Months? You think it's due to the pandemic? Could be. But you've also had a systemic issue with self-confidence and a kind of over-egging obsession. Yes, I can see my notes. Over-egging obsession with your idols, where you think that they're kind of iconic and you could never replicate any of their creative work. Interesting. I'm gonna prescribe you 5 days p***ing around with Lena, and if that doesn't work, please come back and maybe we'll get you some Calpol. Hello and welcome to this incredibly silly video. If you haven't been here before, hi, my name's Lena. I am a poet and a YouTuber, and I have my first collection, ding, coming out in July, and this is how I feel about that. However, as somebody who now apparently publicly writes stuff, I think there's this preconception that I always find it really easy to write, or that people who have stuff published are just naturally good at it, or get struck down by divine inspiration. There's like light bulbs going off, lightning striking the side of their head, like it just happens. And that's honestly not the case for me most of the time. Most of the stuff I've actually written that I'm kind of happy with has been from like really unexpected prompts, things that I'm like, why did I think of that? Or somebody else has set me a prompt and it's just set me off on this weird tangent in the inaccessible part of my brain that is processing stuff all the time and I don't even realize it. So I thought this week I'd take you along on my creative rut cleanse. It's like a juice cleanse, but cheaper and frankly less scientifically wayward. I have got 5 lipsticks here. I really like lipstick. Does it make me shallow? I don't think so. It's kind of just one of the small joys in my life. And I've also realised that lipstick companies like to give lipsticks really weird names, and I wondered if there could be a correlation between my 2 hobbies and see if I can write some poetry inspired by lipstick. So this whole week, every day for about 10 to 20 minutes, I'm going to set aside intentional time to write whatever I like based on the colours of these lipsticks, and I'm going to take you on my writing process with me. A lot of the time I'll just chat you through like what I've thought of. I'll write in front of you and we'll chat about some of the misconceptions around like how people come up with stuff. Sometimes you just have to have the confidence to on the page, knowing that it's going to be bad in front of yourself, even if nobody else is watching, and later roll it into some glitter. I feel like writing, and especially poetry, is one of those hobbies that more people would have if they felt invited to it, if it wasn't so mystified, if it didn't have this big kind of like smoke billowing out of the communities and the industry. And in the same way that like I think about a lot of people jog, and you're not really expected to be like if I say, oh, I went on a jog today, nobody's like, oh, that's cool, when are you going to join the Olympics? Like, we're so often like expected to be good at our hobbies, or like the fact that the practice of doing our hobbies is just like good for us, good for our health, good for our mental health or our physical health, and fun, and it can just be that. You don't have to like share it with anybody. Nobody has to go and watch you jog, in the same way that nobody has to read your poetry for it to be a cool, fun thing that you do, and maybe even part of like what you see as your identity. So anyway, I've done some poetry on this channel before. You might remember I did a 24-hour poetry lock-in during the depths of the pandemic, and I've done a few like lock-ins like that before. So if you want to treat this like that and you want to write along with me, brilliant. But even if you don't, just grab a cup of tea and you can watch me delve into the innermost strange and bizarre workings of my brain to make some silly stuff. It's not the stuff I'm going to be most proud of. That's like the stuff that I've polished and put in my collection, but it's to show you the starting points. No doubt some of the stuff that I've written from these lipsticks will be at the level that some of my poetry was before I edited it. This is like the kind of raw silliness, and I mean, if all else fails, a good rhyme always pleases me. So let's go, let's start, and let's see if I can get myself out of this creative rut. Let's go. Okay, so it's day 1, and I think I'm gonna go for something quite scandalously dark. I don't know what it is about wearing like nautical stuff that makes me want to subvert that and not wear a red lip, but here we go. This is one of the fanciest lipsticks I've ever owned. It is a Eldridge lipstick called Velvet Decade. I don't know if you can see, but the outside is embossed, so it looks like velvet on the outside. It's the little things, the little things, the little things, the little things. It's a kind of completely matte, dark plum kind of colour, like a pissed off mauve, if that's a thing. I'm gonna put it on with Sleek Makeup's Precise Lip Liner in Locked Up, and then we're gonna create some hashtag art. I look so worried when I put on lipstick. I think that's kind of how I'm feeling. I feel worried. For someone who is so imprecise and impatient, makeup is such a weird hobby for me to have. Okay, so that's the lipstick. Let's see how I get on writing a poem inspired by the phrase Velvet Decade. Okay, so I spent approximately 13 minutes on this poem. Rough and ready, probably not my best, but I did it and I'm going to read it to you. So for context, I wanted to think about this idea of the Velvet Decade being a time in your life that you always look forward to the point where you idealize it and you think that it's going to have no rough patches. I kind of feel like this sometimes the way people treat the 30s is like, in my 30s I'm gonna like have all this stuff and everything's gonna be sorted and I'm gonna go know who I am and nothing bad's ever gonna happen. And I think like I wanted to align that with this idea of what we have about the material velvet. Like it's a kind of luxurious but weird fabric that when you look closely it's actually just kind of made out of loops and stuff. Another thing I feel strongly about is that you are allowed to pick up your phone when you're being creative. I don't think like the phone stops me from that, and I used Google in a few ways while I was writing this in this 13 minutes. The first way was to kind of look up like the properties of velvet and what it was, and I was really interested to learn, and it played into this poem, that the term derives from the middle French velu, which means shaggy, so something that isn't that posh at all. So I wrote this poem from the perspective of a woman who has been waiting for her 30s and doesn't want to do with anything else than what she's pictured it being, and how that maybe a more banal, boring life is actually kind of a gift. Velvet Decade. I'm in line waiting for my velvet decade, my debutante welcome into chiffon circumstance, an announcement that I have arrived, floating down steps, wrist brushing banister, a way to say I am no longer polyester. The best of life has been issued, finally, and my wee little life has come to something. That velvet isn't just for cushions and occasional party dresses. My whole life is strokeable, stokeable, growable, that I, so recently rayon, held together with gauze and gulping insistence that I am in the wrong room, have at last gone platinum. Don't tell me that this line doesn't move, that all that is silk comes to pucker, that a velvet decade close up will be full of loops, shaggy seconds pulled over a life that was straw. Common, coarse, cluttered, but despite that, cozy, and occasionally golden in the light. Now I don't like how I've kind of repeated life a few times. I think there's like an overuse of that. I'm not sure about the whole analogy, like holding together that tightly, but another thing I did was just Google different kinds of materials and what a cheap material is and what an expensive material was, which is where this kind of use of gauze, which is traditionally used to like keep wounds together, I guess, and rayon and polyester, and this idea that you can just kind of set the tone for your life and then everything in it will be of a certain calibre. So I don't hate that poem, and without over explaining it too much, it is what it is. Let's see what tomorrow has in store. Okay, it is day 2 and we're playing with one of my favourite lipsticks. You'll be able to tell why it's my favourite because it's dead. I killed her. This is one of my favourite lipsticks. It's called Wedding Day, a nice challenge for me. If you watched my marriage video, you'll know. It's called Wedding Day and it is by Huda Beauty. Now, I bought this just before the pandemic, and the fact that I have worn it this much during a pandemic when I basically saw no one shows my undying, everlasting affection. Unfortunate name is the first thought that came to my head when I discovered how much I love this lipstick. But I'm gonna show you it on and then you can see why she's pulled me from my bachelor life. Now, I kind of hate the phrase my lips but better. If you watch any makeup videos on the internet, you'll know that it's a common phrase, because I kind of feel it's like the phrase page turner. Like, if something is a book and you turn its pages and you've read it, it's obviously a page turner. In the same way that my lips but better is like the literal point of all makeup. Like it's supposed to be like your lips but with stuff on them. Do you know what I mean? But if I was gonna use that phrase for something, it would be this. It's kind of like a smoky, burnt nude. Not like warm or dark, but like burned nude. And I don't know if it's just literally my head playing with me, but I feel like it has a little bit of purple in it. And looking at the viewfinder, I feel like none of you are gonna believe me, but to me it's true. Right, let's get on with the poems. I think before I even start, which is something again I do with poetry if I'm feeling a bit stuck, is I'm going to just Google a prompt. So for this, I want to Google the wedding vows, and because I don't know where to start, I'm going to start with that. Let's go. So just to explain, I googled the vows and I was looking at the format of them, and I realized that they kind of came in threes. So I wrote 3 stanzas, and each first line is prompted by something in the wedding vows. But I've also been watching Love is Blind, and the image of so many brides leaving their, I shouldn't laugh, fiancés at the altar is kind of what I based this around, thinking about their perspective. And it's kind of supposed to be about knowing what somebody's capable of, like trying to remember the good things that you knew about them in the beginning, but still saying no at the altar. Wedding day. To have and to hold from this day backwards, for less of yourself and more, before you became rich or sick, and I can still put a bow tie on a bad situation. I give you this thing, not a ring, something lighter, a mark in your diary, a waterline to remember how high the seas were and who was on the deck. I take you as you were, a figment of cracked laughter and offered blankets. Release those parts of you to the sky, a lantern to guide an unholy ghost home. Kind of feel like the last line's a bit cheesy, but because I wanted to keep the rhythm and I was on a limited amount of time and it's a draft, I didn't like fully get that last line. But I like the idea of like still honouring, even if something was a figment of laughter, a figment of your imagination, still honouring like the good parts of somebody as you send them off like a lantern, like good luck. And this element of like unholy ghost, I take you as you were, not as you are. And I think sometimes when you're stuck writing a poem or like something, just try and do something really simple, like just subvert what you're talking about. So instead of to have and to hold from this day forward, I wrote to have and to hold from this day backwards. And that's, I went from there, like with that subversion, it made me like try and subvert other things about it. Instead of I take you as you are, I take you as you were. I give you this thing that's not a ring, but hopefully it's another gift, it's freedom, it's a way to get out, a way to find somebody who likes you more. I'm not unhappy with that poem. I definitely think because the concept is so complicated for me, I feel like I put more effort into it if I was going to rework it or edit it. But not bad, and considering I was trying to honour my favourite lipstick, I think I held up to the pressure okay. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Good morning, hoes, bros and twinkle toes. Where did that even come from in my brain? Today the lipstick is teeny weeny, it's teeny. It's a sample lipstick from Charlotte Tilbury. It's made for borrowers and it's in the shade Walk of No Shame, which is a famous colour that they have in their range, and because of all the feminist critique and Me Too, they decided to rename it Walk of No Shame. It used to be called Walk of Shame. And honestly, I think they could have tried harder with the name, but I get it for SEO purposes. They still want like the people who love this shade to be able to find the shade. But I mean, maybe that could be the theme of my poem, is like shades you should have called this colour. Anyway, let's apply it and then we'll go from there. I really need to admit to myself that this lipstick doesn't suit me, but I'm glad that it's going to inspire a poem before it dies. It kind of goes with my top, I guess. It's too pinky. It makes me feel like the fussy mum at the PTA meeting. You know what I mean? Don't know what that means, but I'm sure you do. I'm not really feeling, this is another I want you to witness. I'm really not feeling like writing poetry today. I'm not feeling inspired. My nails look like my brain. Chipped and missing, but I'm still going to attempt it because that's the challenge. That is what we're turning up for. Let's see what I come up with and how long this takes me. Okay, I think I've got stuff. Do you like how I made a tea coaster out of this sign I used for my freelance video? Anyway, let's see what we've got. I tried some rhyming. which I've been shying away from this week so far. Some internal rhymes and some alliteration because I'm feeling silly. So this poem is called A Walk of No Shame, and I wanted it to be not about the nights like when I was out and I felt unsafe or I felt sad about the state of masculinity and how it was affecting a Good Friday night, but the times where I remained oblivious, mainly because I'd had too many shots or because I just felt defiant about it and I was like, I'm not even gonna, you know, I'm not gonna let that ruin the night. So it's about a group of girls going out on a night where that doesn't matter. Walk of no shame, strut of no smut, shuffle without the truffle, a skip akin to bin liner nights where we were credit card carrying children, crossing no man's land to duck men in vans who tease meaning out of hemlines that don't heckle back. There were nights of strides without ties and marches as wide as mouths that made heel clops into horses, the grandest cavalry of us on the warpath home. Feedback for myself, I kind of like it. I feel like it's not saying enough, but I like this kind of the innocence about it, like the alliteration of credit card carrying children crossing no man's land. And then I did a few internal rhymes. I'd like to do more rhyming, maybe tomorrow. So I had no man's land to duck men in vans, truffle without shuffle, strut of no smut. If I'd had my phone with me, I'd have been able to Google more words for walking. But I didn't and I couldn't be bothered to get up. So maybe this poem would have been different if I'd had my phone with me, but not necessarily better, just different. And I've read that out to you and written that in under 9 minutes. So not my worst, but I am going to try and give this lipstick to a friend because it's not me. It's not, that's not me.
No, that's not me.
Act like a walk of shame, that's not me. Tomorrow, let's go. Good morning, another day, another stick. Today I'm going to be lining my lips with a red lip liner and I'm going to be using this lipstick, which you can't tell anybody I still have. It's called Lady Danger and it's by a little company called MAC, who test on animals, and I don't agree with that. And I'm very angry about it. However, I've had this lipstick for maybe like going on 4 or 5 years, which is definitely illegal in the skincare and makeup expiry vigilante community, and I'm sorry for that, but I really like the colour and I can't bring myself to buy another one because I disagree with the company, but I can't find a dupe, so I've kind of kept this for special occasions and also so that I can compare it if I ever do find a dupe, but I haven't yet. Please help in the comments, thank you. Okay, so Lady Danger is a great prompt, which is another reason I wanted to use this lipstick. Let's pop it on and then let's see what my weird brain comes up with. I hope that eyebrow sisters not twins theory applies to lips as well, because I always do them really unevenly. And I mean, yes, you want them to be sisters, not twins, but you don't want them to be like distant relatives. You don't want them to look like different species. Lip liner broke off in my mouth. Yummy. 2 breakfasts for me, I guess. Okay, so this is the lipstick. It's a bit much for some people, but personally I think it's God in a stick. So let's write a silly poem today. I feel like danger rhymes with other things, right? I think I could do a rhyme today. Let's do a silly rhyme. Let's go. Okay, so I spent 12 minutes on this. And I was immediately wanted to do a kind of the highwayman legend, kind of like I wanted to turn Lady Danger into somebody that nobody's really seen but everybody's heard about, and like somebody who's like a local legend, and it turned into probably a little bit of a gruesome accidental feminist horror story, but let me read it to you. Lady Danger. Half enticingly familiar, half dangling stranger, born once yesterday and once in a manger. Shuffles on stilts and lumbers on loafs, sofa surfs on Mondays but by Tuesdays grabs her coat. 50-50 root cause and at once a saviour, used to be devout but lost her faith in a wager, slices up hope and serves a big slice, spices and sugar and all things quite nice. Scotty didn't have her down as a rampant law changer, which explains why one day he had the gall to detain her. She chopped him up in pieces and fed his balls through a strainer, and so grew the legend of England's Lady Danger. I told you it was going to be silly. I didn't know it was going to be gruesome. So to start this one off, I just started listing words that rhymed with danger. Like it wasn't anything that deep. And I really avoided Googling words that rhymed with danger right until the last paragraph, because I feel like rhyming websites, like this one's a good one, rhymezone.com, use it all the time. Rhyming websites are cool, but I think the way things come across naturally when it comes to like lexis and how you speak, it is the rhymes that already occur to you. So if you just take like a few minutes at the beginning of your writing process just to sit down and think of all the words that you feel like rhyme with it. I didn't use them all. My word: danger, stranger, manger, wager, saviour, behaviour, law changer, and ranger. You don't have to use them all, but I think the ones that occur to you first are probably the ones that are going to sound most natural in your tone of voice if you're writing. So I did that, but then I did use it towards the end because I was really running off low steam, and I just wanted everything to rhyme because I wanted it to sound like a kind of travelling ballad kind of thing. So very silly for today, but I'm looking forward to my last poem tomorrow, and I have renewed my love of this lipstick, which is devastating, but I will find a replacement. And also I should probably wipe this off because it's probably going to give me some kind of illness. Okay, see you tomorrow. Okay, so may have forgot I was doing this experiment today and went a little wild on the eyes. So finding something that will not overpower or may even complement this look is a challenge, but we can only try, and I think I've got something that might suffice. So this is Kaleidos lip clay in Terra. I'm assuming short for terracotta. It's such an unusual browny orange colour. Let me show you. Okay, I've done that kind of messily, but I think it makes sense. It's coming up a bit more red on camera, but it's really quite orangey, Manchester factory red brick kind of colour. So I'm gonna see what I can do with the prompt Terra. No pressure, last poem. Let me put my thinking cap on and see what we can do. Okay, longest sesh to date, and possibly the worst one, but we'll see. I got into a rhyming head and think I like wrote myself into a corner trying to rhyme stuff, and I think it's probably a little bit cheesy at the end. I couldn't really find anything about Terra. Like, I kind of had a bit of a block, and I think when you get into a prompt block like that, you can't keep bashing at it. You have to like go in a new strange tangential direction. So Terra, I was just like putting it over, like repeating it in my head, being like Terra, terracotta, Terra, blah, 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 and I just said terrible twos, and I was like, terrible twos, who's in their terrible twos, like what could that be? And then I was like, do you know who is in their terrible twos? Humanity. So this poem is written from the perspective of Earth as a parent trying to look after humanity, who is in their self-imposed terrible twos, which are completely fictional because like the humanity just didn't start again when Jesus died, and we got into AD instead of BC. So it's an irate parent who's like, why did you have to be born again, and why are you such a fucking toddler again, even though you have been around it? It doesn't make much sense if you actually break it down, but it's artistic license. Okay. Terra. My species is going through its terrible twos. Won't share toys, won't sit still on the loo. The rebirth was fake, but the teething is real. Just getting to the Magna Carta required a urethra of steel. Dark ages, my ass, the devil's years more like. You try stopping this toddler from putting heads on pikes. The naughty step was full by 11:42, and it's not like there's a space-wide mum's net to tell me what to do. His aunt got him electricity, and now we're up all night. You think sweets are bad? He's got an addiction to flights. We're about 10 icebergs away from calling Super Nanny, and the soiled nappies I daren't even tally. But when they're playing, they spin, and it's food for the soul. When she's good, she is great. Perhaps she'll finally find her role. They're batshit benign, a threat and a jest. Perhaps if we hang on till 3, they'll start trying their best. Or at least learn that knives are sharp and which things are theirs. That the gate is to protect them there from the stairs. That moonlight is free and we've got some great finger food here. That life doesn't have to be a jumble of tantrums and tears. Feedback for myself. A bit preachy, but I liked the idea of like picturing humanity like an annoying toddler that is really selfish and like is gonna grow out of it eventually, but will it be in time? I hope you have enjoyed this incredibly silly video, and I hope you feel a little bit looser to just try your best, get a bit loosey-goosey. The older I get, the more I realise that being creative and making stuff you're proud of is more about just turning up and turning on the tap. There's not really much divine inspiration here, at least. It's more just sitting down and making some time and just like letting yourself poo on the page and then trying to make glitter out of the shit afterwards. Thank you so much for watching these videos, and this one in particular because it's so silly and God knows the algorithm will probably hate it, have been made possible by the Gumption Club, who tip me per video to make sure they keep happening. If you like this video, you might like any of these videos, and if you haven't been here before, I'd love you to subscribe because I'd like to see you here again. If you use any of these prompts, let me know, tag me on Instagram, pop them in the comments if you like, and I really hope whatever you're doing this week, you have some time just to do the things that you actually like doing and let yourself be bad at them. Frog Snug out.